So let me introduce you to Anastasia Mishkova. Hey, Anna.
Hi, Eric. Hi, thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. And finally, it's time for me to talk, because I've been waiting for this moment and share my passion. As you perfectly mentioned, this is exactly what I'm passionate about, and I'm happy to be here.
Excellent, excellent. Well, without further ado, why don't I turn the floor over to you, and I'll let you begin your presentation.
Oh, thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
So guys, then, hi everyone again. So today we'll talk a little bit about how are we going to transform this implementation of our enterprise application if we have only 12 weeks, right? So I wish we could talk more than 40 minutes about this topic, but let's try to squeeze in our journey into this, our 12-week journey into this limited time that we have. So, of course, this is not your first day on the marathon, so you probably already know what the low code is about. But for many years, as you know, organizations, they just were limited in buying a software that was that contained a predefined set of features, functionality, objects, and processes, and the organizations, they just didn't know what to do except contact their vendor and spend enormous amount of money and time trying to customize existing features or add new features, which sometimes end up in moving back to spreadsheets. And in order to eliminate this gap between heavily customized systems and Excel files, and to combine the possibility of the systems to be customized and impossibility of Excel to be customized by end users, low-code technologies exist. So a little bit of basic about this. So it actually helps employing a low-code technology on your side internally as a part of your architecture helps to reduce development time. This 70% is an average for our projects, and comparing to what you have at the very beginning when you just start the project from scratch, this is where the number comes from. Here with the low-code technology, you actually get something already, some core, some basics you can work with, customize, develop, add new features, adjust those that already exist, and to fill your needs. There's no need with the low-code technology to hire a dedicated team of experts who are web developers. If we are talking about here, we're talking about a web application which will be available for you wherever you are, from your phone or from the web browser, it doesn't matter. The most important is that low-code technologies, they allow you to keep all the knowledge within your IT team. So no need to hire new experts, right? And of course, some of the things finally available to end users. There is no need to ask every time a vendor or wait till the ticket will be processed by the help desk team when they set up some dashboards, reports. All of this now available to end users, and that's exactly what is the benefit of a low-code system. So let's start our journey. Of course, I'm skipping this part where you spend months, weeks on selecting the right tool for you. And we'll talk about only the journey, the actual implementation journey. But of course, make sure that when you select a technology, it fits your needs. Because if it doesn't, then it doesn't matter how many perfect and qualified and experienced people you have. It just doesn't matter because it doesn't fit your needs. You need to develop more and customize more things and add more. So make sure that the tool just fit it. So when you finally got that tool, the right tool that you need, Make sure to define your goals, of course. Be specific when you're working on that. Work on find your team. You need to make sure that your team is there for you to deliver what you need. Of course, without the team, if you start trying to find a team when you already started the implementation, then it just doesn't make sense again. So when you work on the project, it's also, when you deliver this application, it's a project. So what you need to define methodology that you're going to use in order to implement this project. And of course, build a timeline, work with those, show it to people, show it to your employees, to your end users who are going to use the tool and who are going to expect it. Let's talk a little bit about defining your goals. Most of you are probably business owners, so you probably already know how it works in real life and how to set them up. But I wanted to talk a little bit about this because it is important. You really need to focus on defining clear goals and be realistic. Don't try to lie to yourself and don't try to come up with something that just doesn't make sense, right? We love saying that our goals needs to be smart, of course. So be specific, right? What do you want to accomplish? What actions do you want to take in order to deliver this? What are you going to use in order to measure your success? So this needs to be embedded into your goals. Ask yourself, is that goal is achievable? So we have here 12 weeks as a timeline, right? And try to think of whether the number of the customizations and integrations that are going to be put into the backlog, are they actually achievable within 12 weeks timeline? Have you got this preliminary confirmation from your vendor, from your implementation team? And I know this slide is full of questions, but that's true. That's what you do when you work with goals. You set them out clearly and realistic, right? You also, let's say, use an example. When you try to set up something as a goal like reduce customer churn, then this probably not really specific, hardly measurable, but what do you use, right, to identify what exactly, whether achieved it or not? So if you try to be more specific, then try to set up something like reduce the churn by 5% by the end of this quarter. And then with the use of the technologies, let's say a CRM system that you set up, you can use that technology to measure and see the results. One more additional thing that you work with when you set up your goals, of course, and when you start working on the implementation of the project, when you're actually trying to identify what is going to be a scope of a project, try to work with your people, with your employees and management team, with everyone who is going to be involved not only into implementation, but also in the actual usage of the tool. By the end, talk to them. Ask them what they don't like right now, what they want to improve, what is not working for them. So all of these things and all of these pain points, all of these issues will be reported, list them in, let's create a share space for everyone to share their pain points so that people could vote for that in order not to process enormous amount of data. So consider that your management is going to work with the tool as well. So talk to them as well. What do they want to achieve? Everything that you get from people, of course, needs to be prioritized and needs to be reviewed and analyzed, because there may be not problems only in the actual business processes that you have, but maybe something wrong with people, the way they approach the work. But this is a different topic. But focus on something. Extract the data that will help you to set up that tool, and that will help you then eventually to improve the processes, to optimize the workflow, to decrease the speed of processing some documents or informations information that is getting from the outside of the organization. So get into the team, right? Before you start the implementation. This is important to work with people whom you trust, of course. And when you select, so let's say you can be the one, you can be the project sponsor. Project sponsor is the person who is responsible, who owns the resources, the project, the budget, the timeline, everything. So this person can, and I suppose that's you. So this person is someone who responsible for the actual change. A project manager will actually report to a project sponsor on the resources, on the budget, on the scope, on the timelines, how is it going, whether we are still on time or not. So project manager is a key person for the team to communicate with the project sponsor, of course, to deliver the data, because you want to make sure that you get all the timely information, not from the team, right? Because the team, they actually, they work on the tasks, they work on the scope, but they're not always focusing on the, let's say, on the timelines and on the budget. So project manager will then help to manage all of these processes internally. So if you start this implementation, if you start this journey, make sure that in addition to a project sponsor who is the owner of the process, who is the owner of this initiative, you also have a project manager who will work on the managing all of these processes. You also will have and should have probably the team of experts who will own the business knowledge. Of course, let's say I can see questions coming, but I really want to finish this slide. So the idea is that project sponsor was the advocate of this whole initiative, right? But you wanted to automate different business processes within your team, like within your company, let's say service and sales. And you as a project sponsor, of course you can try, but it's better if you delegate this to someone who actually works with the system, who knows the processes, who owns the details of the actual workflows. And if it's someone, it's not necessarily someone from a management team. It can be your most experienced user or super user, power user, call him whatever you want, but someone who knows all of the details of the actual implementation, who can share and own the business idea. So that's why you need the dedicated team of business owners or business processes owners, or just easy subject matter experts. And for the implementation of even if it's low code technology, you still need to employ some technical leader, some technical teams. Let's say for the implementation team, you can have business analysts. Those people are processing business requests they are transforming them into the technical design or technical documentation, or just start working on the tool per se. And data analysts, they can be responsible for data migration and proper data cleansing to make sure that when you transfer or migrate data from one tool or many tools, which is usually can be the reason why you decided to transform, to make this digital transformation and add a new tool in your architecture, is because you have too many tools to manage the data. So you get someone who managed all of this aspects of your business and making sure that the data is properly cleansed and migrated into the system. And you may also have developers. So low code may still require some little development. It doesn't mean a lot. It just means that there may be some complex customizations or processes that are far beyond what the tool can give you, because there might be some limitations. So you might have a need in developer. And of course, for let's say CRM admin, this is the team member, or many of them. It depends on the number of workflows that you automate a number of people that you employ. But CRM admin can be actually someone from the implementation team who can then communicate with end users and transfer all of the requests into the, let's say, into the backlog, and then working on the actual implementation for the team. Yeah, so let me look at the questions, because I really wonder what is happening there. And I know that
sure.
I know, Eric, we agreed to discuss them later, but I'm really keen to learn what is happening there.
That's perfectly fine. I can help facilitate these for you, Anna. So the first question is, which business processes should be transformed first?
Okay, so that's a good one. Let's say, I would say that it depends on what is your business about, right? What is most critical for you? I would go with the approach of quick wins, because if we have this short timeline, let's talk about this limitation of 12 weeks that we are trying to squeeze all of the, let's call it minimum viable product or whatsoever. So try to customize or try to automate something that will bring value right away, that will demonstrate the value for your people, for your management if they don't trust in the tool yet, or to your users, because you have many of them, and if they're not happy or complaining a lot about it, you can show this small automated processes just step by step, and then increase or add new functionality on top of it in small iterations, which is an advantage, of course, for the team. And you will see the result, and people will be happy because it's just happening very fast for them. So they should be extremely happy, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. It goes back to your point about defining goals, right? Understanding what you're hoping to get out of this, and then that will determine which business processes should be transformed first. Excellent. So we've got another question. I know our chat team had done a little bit to answer this, but I'd be interested in getting your feedback. We discussed the question reads: we discussed the same question of every transformation strategy meeting. What department should lead digital transformation projects or transformation projects? HR, IT, sales. Do you have any advice?
Okay, so giving an advice is not always a good idea, but I can give some recommendations based on the experience and based on what we see, what actually works. And there is a statistic, by the way, for that, but I don't remember the numbers. But when we work on the transformation, it's better when you have a dedicated team member. So let's call it, usually there isn't even a department, and not the one that already there. Because then you need to get one person with one responsibilities and set of responsibilities and skills, and put that person to work on the transformation strategy. Is it fair? I don't think so. So sometimes organizations, they employ chief digital officer who works on this transformation in addition to chief information officer, because then we have this dedicated team member who's actually working on changes, because IT team, they support current infrastructure so that everything is properly set and optimized to work in a better manner. But a digital transformation team or member will work on that. You have to work on this transformation strategies and making sure that everything improving, and maybe some processes that are still not automated can be moved to a digital space, right? So that's the idea behind this. So let's then pause here and jump back to a presentation. But that was a nice part. Right. So we defined a team, and now we start our actual scoping. So let's say We call it a scoping, you can call it a discovery, whatever you call it. What is the most important is to make sure that you're not jumping straight away into the actual implementation, that you don't try to use those pain points as the actual call to actions. It's not how it works. You need to clearly define what exactly you are automating, what you work on, what are the use cases and scenarios that you're going to automate. Because hearing people complaining about the, let's say my files are not optimized because this is just a paper, right? This is a notebook. Of course, it's not a task. What do you want to achieve? So this is what you do. You create a clear use cases. You describe them in a manner that is readable by a technical team. So that's where you have this work of business analyst analyzing the actual scope, whether it's a list of pain points, whether it's just a list of complaints, whatever you call it. The most important is to make sure that you create a clear use cases and scenarios for your team to work on. And when you have this list, it's a huge backlog. And in most cases, it's just happening sometimes that you create an enormous, the huge list of items that you need to work on. And when you estimated them, you see that it's more than 12 weeks. Well, you decided this to have a 12 weeks, so be flexible. And it's absolutely normal. Identify the critical points that will help you to go live in 12 weeks. That's the idea behind this. Limits of time frame. Prioritize those items, and would be good to map actually those pain points with the features that are going to be delivered, so that people could see when something is delivered. And the idea behind this is that you keep your team motivated. They see that you are actually working on their items. They might not realize that when the use case implemented and it's created for a technical team member, they might not realize this is exactly what they're asked for. So that's why map it, put the priorities for it, and those lists that is out of priority, so let's say they're low priorities or nice to have features somewhere below the list. And if you want to show people that this is not forgotten and it will be actually delivered at some point, show them this list and let them know why it's not there yet, why it's not in highest priority, whatever reason you select or whatever prioritization technique you select in order to prioritize your items. Communicate to people. So this is this is a part of a change management procedure. You don't want to ignore people who are going to use the tool, because if they are not happy, if they don't think that you hear them, because that was the idea behind identifying those pain points, right? You want to be heard. If I put something on a list because my manager asked me to put this on a list and he promised me that it will be delivered, so I expect this to be delivered, and it's not making me happy if it's not. If at some point he just tell me, oh, sorry, it was deprioritized, it's not on the list anymore. So that's not how it works. Explain it to people. It's a part of a communication. It's a part of work on this digital transformation that you need to be doing. Clearly set up your application architecture. Why it is important? Because you want to ask yourself on this stage, on the first week of your implementation, on this discovery session, how do I want my business to look like in 3 years? I know it's, let's say 2 years, 5 years, whatever. But the idea behind this is that you don't want to put in place an architecture that is not scalable, that is not that does not fit your needs even in 2 weeks. You never know. Maybe people decide to change something. They try out the tool, and they realize that it's not that convenient to use that tool. So then you probably decide to try to redo something, and that will require a lot of time. So make sure that the architecture is put in place in the right manner. Make sure that you know that every of your use cases has an acceptance criteria you work with, so that you know that it is ready when all of these criteria met. It is important, otherwise you just don't know why you are doing something. And it's important for a team because they are just not delivering something, just implementing a feature. They know what business goals it has behind it, and also they know when to consider it's completed, right? Because there should be an end. We know that we have 12 weeks. Why shouldn't we put an end to some feature that we are working on? Confirm what you have implemented. Let's say it's a technical design or a business concept, no matter what you call it, a blueprint document. Confirm it with the key stakeholders. Let's say these are your subject matter experts or your end users. Show them what you are going to work on and agree with them. So that is important to, in order to make sure that we are going to work exactly on what is expected from us. And if you have your own team, and if you're not hiring someone offshore or from a vendor side for the tool that you have, train your implementation team. Before you start this implementation, make sure that they know what they're going to work on. And let's say you can start already before the scoping session starts. You can start earlier. It depends on a tool. With the low-code technologies, it's usually pretty much easy. You just you could just pass the exam after the 8-hour training, and that's it. So that's the benefit of this low-code technologies. So train your team if you want them to work on that tool. Make sure that this is not there's no learning curve for them. They're not learning while they're doing. But if they are, at least they're not, when you train them, at least they're not wasting too much time on learning how to do that. So make sure that the team is ready. Right, a couple of useful tips before we get into the actual implementation. As I said on the previous slide, communicate with your team. In this case, we're talking about the implementation team because you want to make sure that they, whatever they are doing, they want to be appreciated, because that's one thing. And the other thing is that if they are doing something and not getting a feedback from you as project sponsor or end users, it might happen that something they're delivering, it's not delivered on in a right manner, or you realized too late that something goes wrong, but you never delivered it to a team. And if you're just there for the team, let's say once per month, then it's also not very useful for them. They know that they cannot address their questions to you because you are not there for them. And just no matter what border you put between you and implementation team, and the reason behind this, if you don't talk to them, then you put your project in a risk. So if they have questions, please make sure to answer them. Please make sure to talk to them and tell them that you appreciate what they are doing, because if they're motivated, trust me, they'll start working on it faster. And share your feedback early. I said that on the previous item, but that's crucial. Just once again, if you see something is not going wrong, don't think that you will offend team if you tell them already before they complete the sprint or finish the sprint, or before they finish the feature. If you know that it's not working properly, tell them right away. And it's better to work on that as early as possible. Involving end users on the early stages. This is the key to success of every implementation, no matter how big your implementation is. We are talking here about 12 weeks. Then it's extremely important to make sure that your users are there. So what we did at the very beginning, right? How we involved them? We took their pain points and we start working with them. And then we can involve them as a key stakeholders to confirm the requirements with them. It doesn't mean that you have to confirm with every person, but select a power user as your subject matter expert, and that's it. And then you can involve them on a demo sessions and showing them the progress. If you are not We're not trying to go live in 4 weeks, but you actually going to wait for 12 weeks. Then especially it is important to keep them involved at least on the demo sessions. If there is no need to work on some sessions, but work on some requirements anymore, make sure that they are involved into the demo sessions and involved into the testing as well. We also recommend, while we are developing a project in short time frame, and especially when it is an application for an enterprise organization, then use agile framework no matter what it is. We in Creatio use Scrum. It works for us, and for a lot of companies it works. For FBI it works. So why shouldn't it work for you? Welcome changes, of course. Be open to changes and know that they will happen. And don't try to persist, because this is something inevitable. And if you're not ready for them, then it's probably not a good idea to start the actual implementation at all, because the changes will happen. That's the idea of involving users, because you want to see that whether we're moving in the right direction or not. So that's why you need to know that the changes will happen and you have to be ready. Motivate your team. Of course, I've mentioned this already several times, but it is important for their well-being, for the success of the project, because it may happen that sometimes it is needed just to stay a little bit longer on the feature, to work a little bit longer, or maybe on a weekend. It's not required, of course, but if this is happening, if your team is motivated, they will do that because they want this. It's not because they are obligated or they must stay and work on weekends. It's just because they believe in what they are doing. And this is not only about the project team, and also motivate your end users by involving them. Of course, they'll then use this tool, so they need to know that it works for them and it's developed for them. So finally, we are on this execution phase. We already captured all of our requirements, and we're now ready to start the actual execution. So what we do here is that in order to make sure that our 12 weeks is still a possible and feasible deadline, in your team, make sure to parallel some workflows, some automation parts. For that, we can split, let's say, service and sales on different team members. It will help you, by the way, on further stages when you have when it's already live, the project is live, your product is already live, and you have 3 team members working on service, 2 team members working on sales, still, let's say, developing some improvements. And you have a backlog full of features, and then the back request is coming, just something is extremely wrong. So what should you be doing? Because you have different team members that are working on different flows, it's also a benefit for you, as you can see after rollout, is that you can just get one person without disturbing the actual backlog or your plans, and ask that person to fix this. And this will help you to speed up the implementation process. So it's not only something that works for now during the execution phase, but also something that works for later phases. So this is like with a long-term benefits from paralleling some flows. If there is something happening with the priorities, adjust them. And as we already talked about, changes that should be welcomed by you and your team, make sure that project manager updates that plan and shares with everyone. So this adds this transparency and visibility to the actual progress. That's why project manager is important and a key person on a project to manage all of these flows and processes. And don't forget that you need to update the information that you work with, because you have to see where you're going, whether you're moving whether you are moving in the right direction, whether you are still hitting that timeline or not. So this is why you need to have a project manager in place to update the documentation, the information that is available for everyone, and share it with everyone. If you are working using an agile framework, then you better have, with a short timeline, regular demo sessions. You have to show the results every 2 weeks, at least, because we still have 12 weeks, right? If you want to show it every week, you might, but usually 2 weeks is a regular time frame for every sprint or iteration. It's enough to fit all of the features that you planned and finish them in a timely manner, and not spend a lot of time on the planning and discussing, because 2 weeks is a regular time frame. So demonstrate the results to end users, to management, to project stakeholder, if you are not the one. So make sure to demonstrate it. Test the tool from the very beginning till the very end, and even after. What it means by never stop testing is because when you have these phases of testing within the implementation stage, afterwards, when the tool is already live, you test it in order to make sure that that everything works the way you expected, even after all the features has been implemented, and with the highly changeable conditions of working conditions. Test it and prove it that it actually still fits your needs, that it's still appropriate for business requirements, for business environment, because it's changing, and you don't want to end up somewhere at the end of the list of the companies in Forbes. You want to be on top of it. And what you should be doing: try out your tool, make sure that it's working properly, and helping to deliver your deliver your business goals and achieve them. And well, let's say this is also kind of a tip, but if you start this huge initiative and you for enterprise organization, and you have only 12 weeks, then make sure the data migration is happening early, not somewhere at the end of your journey. And don't think that it's enough for you to spend 2 days on the data migration. It's not that. You have to check it, test it, and that's why it's better to start doing at the very beginning. And it actually will be useful having the actual data, the real data on the environments, on the dev environments, while you are implementing and testing the tool. Couple of tips with regards to the implementation when that is already in progress, when it's already happening. First thing that you should be doing is make sure to utilize as many out-of-the-box features, items, elements, objects, and processes as possible, because this is exactly the reason of first reason of buying this low-code tool and trying to work on it and use it for automating your workflows. If you selected the right tool, so part of the features will be already there. Of course, in most cases, you'll customize the data model, which is probably inevitable for every company, especially when you are an enterprise organization. But if you are utilizing as many things as possible out of the box, then you will hit this deadline. That's the secret behind this 12 weeks, is that you are not trying to develop, and secret of a low-code tool, that you are not trying to develop everything from scratch. And of course, this is an advantage of a low-code tool. Make sure to document everything and changes and requirements, everything that you work on. If you put this on requirements on the shared storage available for your future team members, then that would mean that if there are some changes in future needed, it's easy to address them, because you can just review the previous notes, requirements, documentation, and understand what you have to be doing in order to in order to deliver this new change, right, and make users happy. And also this documents, let's say documented requirements, they will help you to create your own knowledge base that you can then share with end users. And when they have access to it, that would mean that they now have the answers that they need. Because if they're not sure in some feature, they can read it out, and yeah, that's it. Then it's not only a benefit for a future implementation team or for future changes, but also a benefit for your end users. And that's where this data migration, early data migration, comes handy. When you test the feature, when you share when you assign the testing on the end users, they will provide you with a more relevant feedback when they test everything on a real data. And that's actually what we notice for a lot of times, because we see that they might not notice how good the tool is working, how fast it is working. They're trying to compare the real data to what they saw in the previous tool and their notes and whatever they've been using before. They're trying to compare it and then see whether whether the tool is working or not. This is not exactly what we are, it's not exactly what you as implementer or as an owner of this initiative want to be focused on, is just on the data quality, right? I mean, for when you test the features. And of course, one also useful tip that we keep forgetting sometimes as an implementation team, not like personally me or my team, it's that sometimes we forget that access rights and users needs to be set up on the very early stages, because users who are testing the tool, they don't realize that they have access to all the data. But then when it comes to the real rollout and you didn't set up access rights, then that's a problem, because wow, then you wasn't ready for that and you forgot about it. So make sure that you have this in place on time. A little bit on how it may happen on the iterative implementation during the execution phase. Let's say you have this 2 weeks iteration and you want to achieve as much things, you want to deliver as many things as possible within that 2 weeks time frame. So you probably will follow some framework, let's say Scrum, and usually the cycle looks like that. So you start with preparation of requirements, you put them in a language that is readable by a technical team from a business users. Then you start working on the customizations, and that doesn't mean that it's just happening step by step. It just means that there are some flows like that inside this iteration. You start the implementation and customization or development if needed, if some complex calculations are there. So you may add a development team member. And as you're ready with all of these items, test it, of course, before transferring to end users, and make sure that all of the features by the end of this cycle are tested by your end users. And for that, make sure that the real data is there, and they'll focus on the actual features. Within the implementation phase, which is still not over, work on the training, prepare it, and identify what is going to be your training approach. Whether you want to have this in e-learning sessions, let's say you created some videos, recorded them, and published them somewhere on some platform dedicated to your team. This can be one of the approaches. This can be an on-site session when your trainers will get 2 people, where they will be all together in one space, and they will work out on the tasks. You'll have a demo session, and then you have a practical session. So this is the way how the on-site sessions can be set up. Or you can also work online, because of this that is happening, because all of this that is happening in the world, You can actually also try out this option, because you see webinars are working fine and perfect for a lot of companies and organizations, and everyone is, let's say, already ready and open for that. Even if people were not really tech savvy, they are now quite tech savvy and ready to work online. So as you defined your training approach, try to identify the groups of how you are going to train your people, your users. Let's say you can dedicate it, you can split the whole team, your whole organization, per roles or per functional requirements. You can decide on your own. It's just important not to try to educate 100 people by one person at a time. This may be a demo conducted by one person, but then you have to have these small groups working in, or even pairs, working on some tasks, and you have your trainers working with them. It would be also good if you have someone from your, let's say, if this is a team of sales reps, you probably want to someone as a power user to train them, someone from their team whom they trust, who can advocate not only the tool, but can also advocate the processes that are in there. So select someone from your team who can be this power user, who can be a trainer for your team members. And this person then, how to make sure that this person can train others, make sure that this person is involved into the implementation process all the time. So let's say you ask this person a question. This can be a subject matter expert. You involve this person into the demo sessions, into the daily sessions if you have them, in your sprint planning or just planning sessions. And if they see someone like their peer trains them and sharing their feedback and sharing their expertise and sharing their excitement about the tool, then they will be more open to use that tool and they will be more happy. And they will see that if that guy could do this, I can also do this, right? We have, let's say, very last 2 weeks of our journey. This is exactly when we are preparing to the actual rollout. Of course, as you can see, we're not showing you here each step of the implementation process, but this is just an overall idea of what is happening during this journey, from the very beginning till it's never ending story, I must say, but till, let's say, a rollout. So dedicate a couple of last weeks, depending on where you are with regards to the requirements you're working on. Dedicate some time to train your users. So you prepared everything on training for the training, identify the approach, identify the team, the groups of people and trainers. So now it's time to actually train them, of course, and try not to overwhelm them, your people, with the information, because having something new, a new tool, is always a struggle for people. Even if you've been trying, even if you had the change management procedure in place, it's still tough for them. They just, this is our nature. It's difficult for us to change things. That's why it's better to make sure that you have, let's say, 2-hour session, 4-hour session, especially if it is online session. It's better not to try to put them in front of computer for 8 hours and try to train them. So yeah, but still important to do this, not during the rollout, not after 12 weeks, but if you are trying to go live in 12 weeks after the very beginning, after the start, then make sure to educate them before you go live. They'll probably share some feedback with you, so you can capture it, you can embed it into the tool. You still have 2 weeks. If you start this training session, they can share their feedback. Be open for that again, and work on their feedback, try to improve the processes, the flows that already embedded into the tool. And of course, you still have some time for bug fixing and polishing. So it also may be useful to freeze some code, freeze some development of new features on week 10, and then work only on the actual implementation. And when it is already live, so there is a moment of celebration, and you already got some champagne, but after that, the real work starts. You need to have the knowledge base, right? We talked about it already. Make sure that your users, your end users, everyone who is using the tool, have access to knowledge base. They can read about the features, about the specifics of the tool in that knowledge base. And especially if you expect them to set up some reports on their own or dashboards on their own, it is especially important to have this knowledge base in place for them to get access anytime they want. Identify your CRM admin. So let's say create a specific email if you don't have it yet for helpdesk.creatio.com and try to let your users know that every time when they have problem with the tool, or if they're not sure with something, or they clicked something and it disappeared, let them know that they're not there on their own, that they have someone to contact and ask the question and ask for help. And that's what you're going to do when you have this everything in place after the rollout. And yeah, I guess that's the most important. Be open for changes and give them access to the information that they need in any time they need. Make sure that they know where to go in case if they have a problem. So I guess that's it. Thank you.
Very insightful, Anna. That was amazing. We thank you again. This was a very detailed presentation, and I hope that the audience gained some insight on how to manage projects within your own business. All right.
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks, Anna.